it's all a Zoom meeting, a Teams meeting, takes countless more hours. So again, thank you for taking the time to join us. I know that you've been all very, very busy. I'd also like to take the time to thank ABSL for organizing and hosting this event, alongside my fellow speakers who have, again, prepared a lot to share with us the knowledge and give back to the community a lot of insightful information around how to create digital disruption in this new economy. Of course, as we know, and I'm sure we've been media bombarded about this, the global pandemic has disrupted and impacted the global economies, grinding some companies to a complete halt. This is literally an unprecedented event that has completely changed the way many organizations look at digital transformations and operating at scale. There are companies out there who are struggling due to the nature of their business. We can imagine transportation, like airlines, travel, hotels. But there are other organizations, both public and private, who are facing huge increase in demand, both from customers, vendors, employees, and they are now forced to take a look at their digital systems, the way they provide solutions, the way they enable creativity, workplace, digital workplaces, and they have to redefine the way they adapt and design their decision making in this new era. I personally believe that this is a huge catalyst for transformation, and we will all see how the new normal will look like in, I think, maybe 3 to 6 months, once we start going back to our regular business. The main topic for today is how companies are reacting to these critical changes through automation, to digital transformation. And we've gathered here some of the best consultants in the field available in Romania, some of them my close personal friends, to discuss about these needs, I would say them, basic needs. IT has become a basic need. Before I go forward, the agenda will consist of 2 main parts. The first part, we'll be looking at demos, use cases, which are presented by my fellow panelists. And on the second part, we will have I will host a conversation, a moderated conversation, where we will discuss what we saw, and if possible, I urge you to ask questions using the Q&A button in Zoom. So below the image, you will see a Q&A button. You can ask questions in there. I will do my best to capture all these questions and address them to the panelists. If not possible, we'll get back to you, of course, later. You can ask questions during the demo or during the moderated panel session, of course. Before we start, I'm just going to quickly present who's with us today. We have Ciprian Otel, our Presales Technical Consultant from UiPath. He will be presenting the UiPath's view on accelerating digital transformation under the pressure of time. That's a good one, Ciprian. Cristina Ionescu, Head of KPMG Romania Finance and Accounting BPO, Director Advisory. She will be talking about hyper automation, the story of RPA based on BPO, where humans and hundreds of digital workers are joining forces to deliver efficiency. Rares-Alexandru Stanescu from PwC, Senior Manager, will be discussing about virtual assistants, robots, and partner ecosystems. The partner ecosystem to deliver business value. And Ionela Stan, Senior Manager of the EMEA Advisory Center from EY, discussing about intelligent automation, key to organizational agility. Once again, reminder, you can use the Q&A button to ask questions, and I will be reading them out loud to the panelists. All right, The first person to start its demo as per the agenda would be Ciprian Otel. Ciprian, I'm handing over the conversation to you.
Okay, thank you, Gabi. Please just confirm that you all can hear me.
We can hear you loud and clear, and I have your presentation on screen.
Perfect. So I will just start with an intro, which is basically a video, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video.
And then one day, the world changed. It said, "You want to see scary? I'll show you scary." And like that, it took away the thing we love most, the thing we need most, being together. Businesses closed. Hospitals were overwhelmed. The world seemed to stop. It asked for heroes, nurses and doctors and paramedics. But as they fought on one front, another appeared, as insidious as the virus itself. Testing and paperwork and supply chain issues, creating barriers between the healthcare worker and the patient. Help us, they said, help us do our job. Because nowhere in a medical oath does it say anything about paperwork. So they sent in reinforcements, and they called it robotic process automation, to clear a 160-day registration backlog in a single day, to provide more accurate test results in 1/3 the time, to reduce the screening time of healthcare workers to 4 hours from 5 days, to cut the processing time of an application from 45 minutes to 5 minutes, to accelerate the distribution of loans to help keep businesses alive. This isn't just about the coronavirus. It's about helping to solve the greatest challenges in medicine, business, life, faster, more efficiently. Think about what's possible if we eliminate drudgery, time-wasted repetitive tasks. This is where hope meets technology, so that we can all go back to doing the greatest thing, the most valuable thing, the thing that says we're not afraid anymore, bringing the world back together.
Okay, Charles Darwin once said that it is the strongest species, not the strongest species that survive, nor the most intelligent. It is the ones that is most adaptable to change. And I think the same applies also today to ourselves, to the current pandemic, but also to the businesses. And nowadays, to survive, let's say, a business, the fourth industrial revolution, now they need to adapt to this new situation. They need to be faster. Everything is more volatile and also less controllable. And some of us may be familiar with this term, but I think this is the time of the digital Darwinism, an era where technology and also society are evolving faster than business, or let's say also the public sector, can naturally adapt. And this sets a stage of new era of leadership, a new generation of business models, charging behind the mantra of, let's say, adapt or die. And it's an era where companies need to adopt an automation first mindset, AI first mindset, and so on. So they need to change the way they think and the way they work. And digital Darwinism refers also to the need for the business and also the people to adapt to new situations arising due to digitalization, due to a crisis, a situation such as also this pandemic. And now, what I'm going to present to you are some use cases which have been gathered and implemented during this crisis. And as Gabi said in the beginning, there are a lot of industries which were affected in a good or a bad way. But either way, we talk about the high volume of transactions which have to be processed. And the people usually were also overwhelmed by so many incoming new requests. And what we did, we basically partnered and we offered some licenses and some implementation so that we can build and automate a lot of processes which were crucial during this crisis. But of course, again, a lot of new use cases are arising also to other businesses, businesses which are changing so fast, just to make sure that they become or they remain competitive on this market. The first one comes from the UK, from Ireland. And here we basically worked with the health services and together with our partner SwiftQ, which is an online appointment healthcare platform. Now the challenge was that they knew that the pandemic was coming and they wanted to be prepared to make sure that they can test all the patients for COVID-19, all the patients which had symptoms, of course. And the challenge was that all the medical, the hospitals have their own medical system, so there could not be a streamlined one process which can be used everywhere for scheduling patients for testing. And we, together with SwiftQ, built a solution and a process basically which involves multiple steps. From the first point of view would be that we automated and also managed to prioritize the booking for such tests. Basically, we allocated appointments to the urgent test centers and also the home tests. And what happened was that there were also different, let's say, risk categories, and this platform also could then rebook patients depending on their risk category, so that we make sure that the ones which need the most the test would get also this treatment. And then if we look at the whole process by itself, how it used to work, the as-is process was that the GP or the doctor just sent out an email, and there was someone at the hospital or at a test which had to make this appointment. Now, we changed this process, and SwiftQ worked together with the UiPath robot. The UiPath bot basically grabbed from the email all the information from the doctor and then just created the appointment. And then it sent it out notifications to the patients and also to the GP, and of course also to the test center. So everyone was informed in real time. And urgent notifications, if we had to change something because of different circumstances, were properly communicated. So everyone knew clearly where to go and what to do in order to get tested. And in the end, this process also helped communicate further on to the lab test and to the hospital system, and also to provide a list to the people, to the center, the staff from the test center, of all expected attendees. And we also had all the information basically there in order to be able to see how many people were tested, how many did not attend, and so on. And everything can be then shared, centralized to the public health system. So we decreased a lot admin time. There was 0 error rate, right? Everyone could be then scheduled properly to take the tests. There were huge backlogs expected, but with robots, you never have backlogs, because if there is a high demand, then you can deploy more bots. So it's really easy. Technology helps you. And of course, the patient experience, which is the most important, right? Because we suffer under such circumstances, and if the system is not helping us and it's nothing is clear for us, then we are also affected. So everything then was and got streamlined due to this automation. And further on, of course, it's also about reducing admin time, giving the ones from the front line more time. And same, we did basically looking at other processes with the remote test centers, where also a robot can really fast process the data and put that data into the system so that we know who was tested and which is the test sample and so on. But this was just one process, right? Or there were two processes also with the remote test centers. But we looked at the whole process, so the complete process, and split it into smaller processes. You get tested, you get scheduled for a test, but then we also need to get some test results, right? And what we did here, basically, we automated the test results. We have a bot which is basically working together with a real-time PCR and grabbing all the data points generating by those machines. the robot is connecting to a terminal. Imagine old applications which work with the terminal, and the bot works with this application, connects there, reads the data, interprets the data, and can put then a diagnostic really, really fast. And having this all automated, of course, was also important for the national health system and for the reporting, because you have real-time data. You can really accurate report and identify issues and then apply some analytics, or in the end, maybe some machine learning, AI, and so on for different purposes. But you have real-time data with high accuracy. And the most important part was reducing the admin time. So the nurse admin time decreased by 49%. Basically, the test reporting was automated so they could focus on other more important tasks. And of course, I think the crucial part between life and death was the test result generation, because we reduced the time from 36 hours to 12 hours, because so it was instantly, the report went out instantly when the robot saw that the testing machine finished processing. And of course, if we look further on, there were also other areas which were affected. Then a high number of records which had to be processed was also for the unemployment, right? There were a lot of people which unfortunately got unemployed. So what we have here basically is also an automated solution for the unemployment benefit. There were forms which had to be filled out and either handwritten or written on the computer, digitized documents, but most of them were handwritten and then scanned and sent to a website. And from there, the bot just goes there, downloads all that information and digitizes it, right? Using optical character recognition technologies. It could also use machine learning and so on, interprets, analyzes, validates that data. And of course, it also can create a payment profile and pay the citizens, right? And we are talking about huge amounts of data, and the people which work there could not handle such a huge volume, right, in days. So delays were expected for weeks, months, and so on, and think about the errors, right, which could have occurred. So a lot of things which have been solved through a simple automation, and automation which could have been done, put in place just in a matter of weeks, right? So we should not get more people into the process, but we could think about a clever way to automate it to make everything smoother and better for the people themselves, right? And here we also could talk about other implementations, and we could think also about Romania. We also have some collaborations with some institutions, with some hospitals. Think about solutions, for instance, for patient onboarding, where we want to have this distancing. We want to reduce the admin work done by the nurses. And basically, we just have a solution where we can make a photo with our smartphone, and the robot picks up the photo, OCRs all the information from the ID, and then starts making the patient onboarding in the healthcare system. And then it starts also to fill in a lot of formulas, right? Because when you are checked in, you need to, I don't know, GDPR, or there are other forms which need to be filled in. So it's a lot of work which we have removed, and we have removed we introduced the distancing between the nurses and the patients which were also possibly infected with the COVID-19. So a lot of risk has been reduced and a lot of admin time. And we can also think about other collaborations with workers from the public institutes, which also can work now with robots. And the robots are augmenting their work and are making the work much easier. They can now much faster do their work, and they can help the population. And we now can make sure that we reduce the human error, right? And this way, we make sure that an economy also will be streamlined and work faster. But we invest time in ourselves. We can invest time and technology in businesses, but in the end, it's basically about investing in human. Reducing also the time spent for the mundane repetitive work, which doesn't bring any added value. Leaving the people, getting the thinker back, putting the thinker back, making the people then take decisions, accelerating processes, and in the end, servicing customers better and faster. Okay, and with that being said, I want to thank you.
One quick question, I think it's really good. So one of the participants has asked us, what is the difference between a phone app, for example, like the one developed by many of our private health providers, right, who, from where you can make appointments and different automations like seeing your results from the analysis and so on, and RPA. So maybe if you can tell us 2 or 3 bullet points, why not an app and why RPA?
Okay. So RPA allows us to use basically any technology which we would like to have. And it allows us to glue or put together different technologies and automate a complete process. Now, if we have just one app, and in our scenario, we just wanted to give to all the doctors and patients access to the app to use it, you need to have a lot of trainings. You need to be prepared with that app. It's not like you invent a new process for the next day for the whole population, right? Here in our situation, what happened was that we introduced a new platform, but the bot was doing actually the same job of logging into that system and registering the new patients, programming them for a test. An app is just a way where we can store and process then that information, but RPA offers much more than this. It offers you the option to automate an already existing process, enhance that process, make that process better. So I would say it's much more than just using one app, and it can help to be put into production much easier. And for this hospital case, you can also think about security measures, privacy things. This way, the doctor, you didn't change the process of the doctor. He did exactly the same thing. So he just sent out an email, but this time not to a person, to a robot, which this time, okay, used the platform in the background. But it's about making things easier.
Thank you, Ciprian.
Yeah.
If needed, we can deep dive more in the panel on differences between automation solutions and front-end solutions. In this case, an app is a front-end solution. We have to move on to the next panelist. I'd like you to pay attention to Cristina Ionescu, again from KPMG, and she'll be discussing with us about hyper-automation. Go ahead, Cristina.
Hello, everyone. I hope everybody is hearing me well, and I also hope that everybody is safe and has not had any problems during these interesting times that we are surviving. I would like
now
to
we
focus...
can hear you well. Thank you.
You can hear me well? Perfect. So going back from the use cases to a more practical approach, I wanted to share with you not specifically use cases for this period, but more how we as a BPO have resisted during this period and how it made us stronger due to the fact of having selected the right technology and having it available in-house in order to quickly be agile and build processes. So the story today goes back 2 years. We started off this BPO in 2018, sorry. You know, automation's influence continues to expand. And of course, it's touching more parts of the enterprise than ever now. And digital automation technology can really streamline back office and front office. What we have thought about is that the number of use cases, while it might be increasing, is not really touching the more mature use cases or the more critical use cases. And we have considered building our own outsourcing function, looking in reverse, meaning taking building upon technology and then adding the people to the processes And therefore, we are now having around 130 robots and only 10 people servicing the BPO. And I wanted to walk you through today very quickly through what we have done, how we achieved this, what were the key learnings during this period, and also show you 2 little movies and present to you which were the challenges that we faced and the key learnings. I hope that's okay for everyone. Of course, everyone knows what the finance and accounting automation is, BPO is. I will not get into the details of how we are automating use cases in each of these type of activities. What was very important for us is to really build the framework for robotics. It was very important to link the framework to the vision and the strategy. And 3 years back, we actually thought about what would be our objective today. Of course, we didn't know such a situation would happen. Nobody knew. It's very unpredictable. But what is important is that we faced it without having any decrease in quality or SLAs. What we did at that point is to really perform a thorough vendor selection. We picked all the vendors on the market. We took a long list of vendors and tried to understand inside out all the pros and cons, because there is no one single solution that can offer all. We shortlisted, of course, some of them. We did reference visits, demo sessions, the way that probably most of you have, or most of your companies have already approached this. And through the final selection, what we have decided is that basically a mix of robotics technologies would make the best out of all our client use cases. And what is important for us is that anytime clients are approaching us, we are selecting through the stack that we have the right technology in order to automate and to actually deliver the services. So most of our platform now is focusing on COFAX technology and invoice blocks. I will not focus on invoice blocks at all because that is it's not an RPA. While the most robots that we have, 130 robots, are RPA. Of course, we have UiPath as well, but I wanted to share with you more about the glue behind what we have in our processing. And the glue behind is more focused on accounts payable. Accounts payable, why and what made for us the difference? Actually, we understood that in accounts payable, it's not sufficient to look only at RPA. We needed to look into, especially that we have a lot of clients, we needed to use RPA, of course, but we needed a very strong process orchestration, advanced analytics, cognitive capture, and mobility and engagement. At the point of selection, and now as well, we consider that one of the most important aspects that people should look into are having an integrated approach and making sure that everything that you have in terms of technology can actually match the objectives. We also focused a lot in the productivity tools. This is the list of the robots that we have. Actually, this is the dashboard. We know all the time, and what was very important for us is not to have a siloed approach to automation, but to have a dashboard that is clearly orchestrating all the robots and is showing us all the time where they are and what they do. We have 147 robots, but some of them are decommissioned. We are not afraid to decommission robots when they are not satisfying ourselves anymore in terms of, yes?
One question.
Yes.
Can you please explain a bit what you define as a robot being? Is it an automation, like a task being done, or a license or an environment, so that the audience can understand better what it means to have 140 robots?
Mm-hmm. Actually, for us, it's a separate process. But I'm talking about processes that are running concurrently.
So there are different processes, different tasks throughout your organization, which are being handled by various technology robots.
Yes.
Thank you.
We are talking about everything is actually performed server level. We don't have any VDA. We don't have any virtual machine. Why? Because we wanted to make sure that it's as risk-free as possible, and it's easy to maintain. Because for us, it was extremely important and critical not to have to maintain and to keep the connection with IT all the time, that various aspects that are outside our work were impacting, such as Windows changes and tools changes. Because what we actually do is receive the input from the client, process it internally, and provide an output. And this output is provided during an SLA of less than 24 hours. So it was really important for us to be able to keep this level of agility. Okay. Moving further, another very important point was to make sure that we have a very strong process analytics. And we are always verifying this dashboard. We know exactly how many robots are working where, what kind of CPU they are using. And of course, how many concurrent robots. You can see here the number of concurrent robots that are actually intricating every minute. We are usually having around 20 each second.
One more question for you, Cristina.
Yes.
So I've seen a couple of BPOs or shared service centers where they use robots, and sometimes employees, because I wanted to gather feedback on what they think about robots, talk about these robots like they're their colleagues. Oh, I'm waiting for the robot to do that, or I'm passing that to the robot and I'm getting later. Can you tell me if you have the same kind of feeling? Are your robots an actual colleague? Are you aware of their existence in a way?
No. We have two approaches. We have also some robots inside KPMG which are colleagues and which have a name and which are nominated as such. But I would say that is more for the change management part, to make sure that people were accepting the existence of this kind of robots. In our BPO, because we have our robots actually outnumber the people, it would have been rather difficult to have so many names. Basically, for us, the robots are the foundation of the existence of the BPO. And the persons that we have are very specialized, specifically on assisting some of the robots, and mostly the ones that relate to the OCR, to the validation that you mentioned as well before. And the other robots are just running in the back, doing all sorts of tasks, and the people do not, so they are not attended robots. Everything is unattended, and the people are just using the results, such as we have robots that are measuring the SLAs. We have robots that are providing, and I will show you, I have a slide as well on that, kind of administrative robots. I would say they are our support functions.
Good. Thank you, Cristina. I think I will take this subject in the panel for further discussion. How do we feel about our robots? Thank you.
So the robots were there from the beginning. Afterwards, we hired the persons. So it was a bit difficult to not to be accepted. Okay. So for us, this process analytics is one of the most important daily aspects that we are looking into. And it also ensures scalability and the resilience to any type of fluctuations in the input data, in the input or in the environment. Why we focused a lot on invoices? Because the main market request from our clients was dealing with paper. We are dealing with more types of paper, but I chose more types of uses of paper, but I chose mostly the invoices. And we are, for example, we are digitizing the invoices for most of the city halls in Netherlands. They are outsourcing the service to us. Why and how do we do it? Actually, invoices, we retrieve them using RPA from various sources and in multiple formats. Of course, mostly they come by email and mostly they come in a picture format. Then we have most of the people in our team is focusing on training the robot in order to perform. And we have reached over 85% OCR recognition, and that's why the number of invoices that we actually have are around 1 million invoices. that are being assisted with only 10 people. And in end-to-end, we have the ambition was to have 30 seconds end-to-end processing timeline. We do provide an SLA of 1 day just to make sure that we have enough time during peaks. But the fact is that these are virtually one touch only. And why? Because we are a service company and we want to touch everything. But the robot is really doing the robots are really doing their jobs. And I wanted to show you a bit of really as a use case, what it means to actually have a team of robots helping the people improve. We started off manually in 2018 with just very new technology that we wanted to buy. And of course, we started off doing things as manual as possible and providing the results to our clients. And we now have reached a very steep productivity increase to around 40 seconds. And it's not only the fact that the machine learning behind the OCR is learning, it's also the fact that we have been concentrating a lot in these improvement robots, or this army of robots behind the people that would anticipate what they would need and provide them with the results as much as possible. For example, we have robots that are verifying which type of SLAs are being in danger, so to say, and are providing reminders per email. Beware this, the client X, you have an SLA that will be in breach in 2 hours. So we are refocusing the energy there. Of course, all these robots are being scheduled depending on what we need. We have robots working during the night. We have robots processing monthly because there would be monthly tasks. And I will just show you a little movie.
I do want to remind you that we're a few minutes overboard. So
I'm already
I'm going to give you
overboard?
I'm going to give you 3 more minutes too.
Okay.
It's interesting.
Then I will maybe not show you the movie because you have already, you know what OCR validation means. I will just speak a bit about it. What made a difference for us is actually we have a lot of line level processing that we need to do. And line level processing means that we have a lot of invoices of many pages in tabular format. And we are actually capturing all the lines from those invoices. We have seen many use cases with RPA that are focusing on more simple invoices like header level. That means capturing just part of the information on the invoice. What was key to our service was the fact that we can actually capture line level, everything that is on the invoice. For example, inventories that are 50 lines. These are the process management information that I was telling you about. So we have we have considered all sorts of emails and exception reporting, including we have a robot that is issuing the invoices for us and providing reports, taking out of the system in the back reports for the people to test, to check. And just one more point, I wanted to tell you that we have set up as well a very quick RPA to answer COVID-19 new process of the validation, not the validation, the issuance of the certificate. You remember when we were going to work, we were supposed to send and we were supposed to get a certificate from the work. We did this, we put it in place in a few hours, in 1 day. What the robot is actually doing is that, and I have a movie here as well, but you said that I'm out of time. So what the robot is actually doing, the person is sending an email, just a blank email to an email address, and the robot in the back is now starting off the process. It is actually taking the person, is verifying in CRM, it's seeing who is the approver is sending the information that it needs, a bit like a chatbot. It's getting the information that it needs from the person, and then in the back is doing and is getting all the approvals needed in order to receive the work certificate from HR. And this, the result of the robot is that in a few hours, the person will get the approved certificate, also in a PDF format, and the robot is doing everything in the back. So without any human interaction, except the approval of the head of function or of HR, that it's okay to come to work. So this was the movie that I will skip. And of course, I'm happy to share every question and to answer every question that you have during the panel session.
Remember all, you can ask questions in the Q&A section, or using the chat tool, you can actually ask a person specifically, like Cristina. Thank you, Cristina, very much for your presentation. I thought it was very interesting. I'm gonna pass now the mic to Rares-Alexandru Stanescu from PwC, and he will be discussing with us about the virtual assistants. Rares?
Hello.
Can you please stop sharing your screen?
1 second to let me know if you can see my screen at the moment.
Yes, Rares, and I can read you loud and clear.
Great. So hello, everyone. I hope, as Cristina mentioned, you had some relaxing time at home during this COVID, even though I don't think it was like that, at least not for us. I would like to take you through the presentation that that I have here, show you how virtual assistant robots and partner ecosystem can deliver value to your business. But before of that, I would like to 1 second. To tell you a bit about how we're seeing the automation and what we've been hearing from the clients and the companies we've discussed with. So most of them are at different levels of maturity when it comes to automation, but all of them, with no exceptions, are looking at automation with and that they expect to deliver great benefits. So in order to reach those benefits, definitely you can you have some process where you can reap those benefits with very little effort. But definitely, in order to automate end-to-end process, you need to deliver to combine several technologies and to create a complex solution. So I would like to quickly go through the use cases that I thought it would be very interesting to present you in this session. So what we're seeing, especially in these times that we're going through, a lot of companies would need to take fast decisions. And in order to take fast decision, you need to have the data in hand. What we've heard from the finance and accounting departments and controlling departments is that they've been strained in these times to provide all these reports. And one of the situation is, for example, for SSE in Romania, which is providing this forecasts and management reporting for a utilities company. So what they were doing before the crisis, they were providing for quarterly forecasts, and they were collecting data from business partners, dozens of business partners, in hundreds of templates, containing all the accounts and variations and historical data. They were they're preparing all these templates, sending them to the business partners, and then collecting them, centralizing them, verifying them, and creating this management report, which was later analyzed in the board meetings. Nowadays, with this COVID and the lockdown and the uncertainty in the business uncertainty that we go through these times, they were required to do this monthly, even twice a month. So they had to collect all these details from the business partners, centralize all these details with a handful of in the department with a handful of people. So the solution the automated solution that could be relevant for them, and we started actually implementing this for them, was to a robot that is actually creating all these templates, is populating all the details, the financial details, the historical details in the templates, sending them to the responsibles. Responsibles had to fill them in, having all the details in hand, fill them in a couple of minutes, because it was very easy to take the decision and populate the information. And had to send them to the robot. Robot is collecting all of them, verifying them. In case there's an issue, it sends them back, specifying what's the issue. Whenever those templates, forecast templates received from the business partners are correct, all of them are centralized. And then, very interesting, the robot even prepares the dashboard that it has to be shown to the board. Of course, inevitably there are a lot of there are additions that the controlling department has to perform on those reports, but 95% of the effort is already, or should be at the end of the project, should be automated by the robots, with of course, as you know, 0% error rate. Because we're working with Excel and PowerPoint, that's the reason why we can count on that 0% error rate. Another use case, which I think is also very relevant for these times, is especially when we saw businesses that had a lot of had seen a lot of increase in demand, and also businesses that lost the demand in the market. For one SSE that was working with on the HR area for a retail chain, it was required to hire a lot of people for the shops in order to cope with the shopping demand and necessity in the warehouse in such a way so the process is not faulted. So before the problem was that it was taking about 2 weeks to hire to onboard a new employee, a new candidate, and the most problem was that a lot of documents were signed. So and then those documents had to be shipped to the headquarters and then sent back to the shop and so on. So and especially the shop assistants were not very used and with the IT systems where they had to insert all the information regarding the candidate. So what we did was to propose a very intuitive solution, and that was a combination of a chatbot that can understand language, natural language, Romanian language in this case, and a robot that is performing all the tasks in the backend system. So the candidate is coming to the shop. The shop assistant is actually taking a picture of the ID. As Ciprian was saying, this is something that works flawlessly, and we can extract all the information from those from our national IDs, populate all the information in the employment contract, and gather all the approvals from the companies, whether it's budget or position in a specific shop, and then prepare all these documents for the employee to be sent. Also, those documents are uploaded in a document management platform in order to keep all those documents secure. This is entirely automated and provided great benefits for the company, because what before was taking about 2 weeks, now it's taking a couple of minutes, right, to generate the documents and to prepare the employment contract. Of course, the company still uses the paper, the employment contract as a paper sign, but this can be later sent, so there's no dependency on that. So the new employee can start work at the same day. Also, the chatbot is this was the main use case, but of course it covers a lot of other use cases like transfers and holidays and uploading other documents that are critical for the shop. And it also offers possibility to enhance the and come with new use cases, because you can also speak to that virtual assistant using your language, Romanian language, to ask for different things. And I'll give you an idea. Please help me find the shoes 321 black, that find them if they are in the warehouse, or let me know in which shop are they. So you don't have to go to the desk and leave your client to wait there and come back most probably with a negative answer. Another use case for this virtual assistant was for a vocal assistant, also helping in the HR department with frequently asked questions. And especially for those who are not, let's say, digitally proficient, those who don't know necessarily how to, or they find it difficult to use a system that's similar to WhatsApp. So in this case, they just called a number and asked the question. And very interesting, the assistant, the virtual assistant, understands was the question and provides an answer. Of course, it can provide much more than an answer to a question, but even collect data and present data from specific system, authenticate him, and so on. Moving further, this is another concept that well, I presented as a concept, but it's a use case which was touched by Cristina earlier, and is the way we're seeing the business ecosystem automation and the way the documents are exchanged between the partners in a business, right? So we're seeing that there's in order to achieve great results and touchless invoice automation, in our perspective, you need to have a system similar to an EDI. But actually, the business ecosystem automation is much more than an EDI. You should have a contract management system, so you're starting to track the documents and the relationship with that specific partner, even from the contract. So, and this kind of solution would allow you to draft the contract, have the negotiations on the contract in this platform, monitor the life cycle of that contract, and then at some point in time close the contract. Of course, the contract is linked with other events in the business relationship that you have to track. So one of those is whenever you're receiving an invoice or you're making an order, or you need to pay those specific invoice. Those invoices are exchanged between the partners through this platform that would allow a document exchange, and very useful, would have a lot of checks between the order, the invoice, and also whatever is written in the contract. Whenever those checks are not met, you would receive a notification or someone. Another point or a feature that the platform has is the master data harmonization. So you have between the buyer and the supplier would need to have a catalog where the products are stored. Me as a buyer,
Rares, I'm also giving you a 3-minute notice.
that should be enough. Thank you. So the product, the master data harmonization contains the product catalog, which can be updated instantly by the supplier, and the buyer can see those points, those updates in real time. So that decreases a lot the risk of let's say, conflicts or discrepancies, or that would require a long, some talks regarding the resolution of those specific topics.
Rareș, quick question, îmi pare interesant și vreau să capturez momentul. Vine de la Emilia Bradea. Does the robot also insert data in Revisal or only for internal company systems?
Sorry, the question is regarding
Revisal. Does
Revisal.
it add data to Revisal?
Yes, but not the chatbot. The robot can add data to Revisal.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And another point would be, and I think it's very, very important, the electronic archiving. There are a lot of regulations regarding the electronic invoice, electronic archiving, and all this. We think that should be met by and integrated in one platform in order to retrieve those documents fast, right? Whenever you have a check by the legal or tax authorities, you need to find those documents and prove that they are correct. And of course, the tool would have has business dashboards where you can see all those invoices, orders, all those details coming and payments coming in real time. So that would be the way we're seeing this partner and business automation. And with this, I'm closing my presentation for today.
One last question, because it's one last question. It's addressed to you.
Yes.
Have you built the virtual assistants from scratch, or did you use a framework? Do they exist on the market?
There are so. To answer directly to the question, yes, we use the framework that is existing on the market. We customized, but the way we build the use case is we build it from scratch using the platform. And there are several platforms on the market that offer you all these features. Right? So there's not only one tool that's great and does it all. So
thank you, Rareș.
Cases, I mentioned two use cases. One of them is built with one platform, the other is built with a different platform.
Thank you, Rareș.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to take control now again and move the mic to Ionela Stan from EY. She's the Senior Manager of Intelligent Automation, talking about the key to organizational agility.
Okay, let me know when you can see my screen.
All clear. We can see the video and your voice.
All right, wonderful. So hello, everyone. I will start off actually with a quick thank you to ABSL for organizing this event, because it gave me the great opportunity to escape work from home and return to the office after almost 3 months. So through this webinar, I'm actually welcoming you in EY's innovation space in Bucharest, which actually hosts many of our technology-related events. And I definitely missed it. And, you know, I'm by myself in the office, so no mask is required. I have been involved in intelligent automation implementations, I think, since the end of 2016, actually. And this gave me the opportunity to kind of see the good, the bad, and the ugly with implementing a new technology, which you know really exposes you to some risks. And I think having worked with mostly with large organizations in this kind of projects, qualified me as a suitable guest for today's discussion. And I wanted to put together a few ideas to share with you. When I hear the question, how can automation help companies in times of crisis? My first thought is automation applied as a bandage, you know, and this, in my opinion, has a short-term and limited impact. So I wanted to start by discussing the importance of strategizing automation to actually build resilience in organizations. and not only survive a crisis. With that message in mind, then I wanted to briefly zoom in on one of the processes that is under fire, not only at times of crisis, but actually during business as usual, because its complexities make it quite hard to standardize and to optimize, and it can also be a source of significant financial waste. I'm talking about the infamous purchase to pay, which actually has been covered by my colleagues as well, my fellow speakers. So I will wrap up then with a few takeaways on how automation can deliver on its promise to help organizations during good and bad times, of course. So the end of 2019 found us in this paradox, as pointed out by Forrester Research, and as you can see on the screen projected right now. So while experimenting with automation was quite common amongst large organizations, and it was quite a hot topic for several years, scaling up seemed to be a challenge for various reasons. So this was something that we as consultants also noticed in the market because there was quite a low percentage of organizations that were advancing beyond the low-hanging fruit of RPA. So what happened was that what we realized is the automation programs had an unexpected outcome. They actually brought to light the red flags that bigger transformation was needed, and automation would not solve all the issues. So processes were undocumented, not standardized. There was a lack of visibility into process performance because of fragmentation of ownership, and shared service centers can definitely relate to this. Data was outdated and not integrated across all the systems. Fast forward to May 2020, and in the middle of this crisis that heavily tested the business continuity plans of many organizations, and we hear from Forces for Sources research that around 55% of the large enterprises that they surveyed indicated they are planning to increase their spending on automation. So I'm thinking to myself, you know, that actually that joke that was circulating on LinkedIn for quite a while is true. So it was that not the CEO, not the CTO is leading digital transformation, but it's COVID-19. Joke aside, actually, this is encouraging news to hear. Sorry about that. So as I said, it's encouraging news to hear that organizations are planning to increase their spending on automation because they realized that there is value in it. So with the caveat, actually, that organizations take the necessary steps to embed automation in their digital strategy and do not expect to get value and great ROI just from very limited islands of automation, you know, taking specific tasks that are that have emerged during this time, automating them and expecting to see great improvement. So this might also mean taking into account implementing technologies such as process mining or process discovery that can set a correct baseline for process execution and improvement before applying automation technologies to actually be able to get significant benefits. Organizations that advanced with automation in the past years actually had it easier because they had the benefit of juggling with some virtual workforce capacity to attend to the most critical business areas during this time. And also to accommodate for some new processes that emerged as a result of the crisis. When here, just as an example, I'm talking about regulatory processes or the switch to online channels by the clients. So this was a necessity that came up during this time, and the organizations that were already using automation could apply it to these new processes. Automation can also help with some out-of-the-box solutions targeted at specific problems or in a managed services agreement, which can speed up implementations without having the pressure to build in-house teams, especially during this time when it's quite difficult to start something new, especially a new team in an organization. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I will just give a couple of examples from the purchase to pay process, which is so close to my heart because it seems to be like an endless source of improvement opportunities. I come across it, I think, since my early days with EY in 2008. Purchase to pay is always there to give us some, let's say, some work in optimizing it. And also it gives me the false impression that time travel actually works, because I hear clients complaining about the exact same things we are documenting in 2008. So maybe lack of integration or lack of visibility, limited use of technology. Fortunately, although the challenges remain the same, we now have new solutions, and we can tackle the problems from a different perspective. And hopefully, 10 years from now, we will be talking about state-of-art purchase to pay. Just a couple of illustrative solutions that I put here actually were touched upon both by Rares and Cristina earlier, the contract management and the invoice processing. And I chose those ones because, to be honest, they just seem so common across industries, across clients. It's unbelievable that these issues keep coming up over and over again. So, for example, there are many document management solutions developed by vendors that now can leverage various technologies across the entire contract management lifecycle. And in Nordic countries, some of my UI colleagues built this solution called Intelligent Contract Management. And it reads, tags, analyzes contracts and third-party documents to provide users with insight on those documents. It uses OCR and RPA to search in the text and retrieve data that it then inputs into other systems as needed by the business users. And the solution leverages advanced machine learning and natural language processing dashboards to tailor the information that is needed in order to improve the process. So I think this is a very important point, that it's not only automating the process as is. These technologies can actually have an impact through the data through the insights that they offer, can promote improvement in the process. And the other popular solution, which has captured the attention of many organizations because of its potential to bring significant cost savings, is the invoice processing. And the digital enablement, I would say, of this process could look like this. So we have various technologies there that could do various things. So it could make full use of a supplier portal to facilitate document and communication flow between parties. It can develop a chatbot to respond to supplier queries and provide insights to internal stakeholders. I thought this was an awesome idea because it definitely helps, especially when we talk about chatbots that have multilingual capabilities, and you can get some real-time answers just by using that. AI-powered OCR engine that obviously extracts and classifies data from the various formats and invoices, since this is common everywhere. Machine learning that is supporting business and validation rules, and actually it can even trigger some master data modifications based on the learnings from the documents it analyzes. Analytics functionalities that put the insights into those dashboards that decision makers can actually analyze and use real time. And last and not least, actually a very useful functionality during these difficult times, the working capital optimizer that can help with the analysis of the payments versus contract terms and ways to get, for example, smart discounting in the relationship with the vendors. Or it's just an interesting way in which we can think of optimizing the cash flow. The reason why I didn't plot a diagram of the perfect purchase to pay process is because I don't think there is a one size fits all. So technologies can be seen as building blocks that an organization can mix and match and basically respond to their own needs at a certain point in time and to their own environment and technological maturity. This will definitely support the agility of the organization because processes are living organisms and they change in time, and you don't want to do a full technology makeover every time a component of the process changes. I think that it's critical to understand what each technology does, clearly define what are the problems that you are trying to solve as a business user, and then develop the fit for purpose solution by taking basically the components that you need from each one of the technologies, rather than buy the technology and try to just force it into practice somehow, which frustrates users and not necessarily brings the value out of it. To wrap up, I will quickly just reiterate some of the ways automation can help organizations respond swiftly to rapidly changing circumstances. Obviously, workload fluctuations is one advantage if you have a virtual workflow, because you have the flexibility to scale up or down the operations. There are companies that had an increased volume of transactions during this time, but then there are others that experienced a decrease. You don't want idle capacity, so having the possibility to use virtual workforce supported them in optimizing during this time. When it comes to new processes, obviously having automation supported by not having to hire new people to take on the new processes. So you can redirect some virtual capacity in learning those processes, especially if we're talking about simple ones in regulatory. For customer and supplier experience, automation can support basically by improving the experience through this seamless or touchless process, and getting to the necessary outcome in a faster way. Especially now, it's important that people don't feel the shift so much from physical channels to online channels and still get a high level of quality, basically. Insights for decision making, obviously this supported just because of the it's faster to react when you have automation within your organization, and decision makers can use the insights in a faster manner. In risk management, because as it was proven, companies that have good BCPs have been better prepared to face this time and to be responsive to external events on a regular basis. And continuous improvement, as it does force organizations to look at what they do and why they do it. So a word of caution, it's organizations should make sure that they don't automate activities that shouldn't be done in the first place. So automating well an activity that shouldn't be done is not going to add any value to the organization. So just because robots don't complain doesn't mean that it's a useful use of technology. So look at processes and make sure that they are fit for automation in order to bring value in the long term.
Ionela, since you're on this topic, and actually I have one of the participants asking a very interesting question, and to the other panelists, feel free to add to this. The question goes like this: what are some examples of unintelligent automation? I'm not sure if they're referring to simple, not smart robots, or robots which did not perform or provide value back to the organization.
Well, or maybe it was just a funny question, because I had a boss some time ago, and he met somebody who presented themselves. They said, I'm the head of intelligent automation. And my boss said, I'm the head of stupid automation. So indeed, the use of these terms, you know, it might seem silly, but intelligent automation does not refer to a technology. It refers to an approach. It's the way you combine these technologies that make the process more digital and basically as touchless as possible. So this is the reason why it's called intelligent automation, because it's an approach, not a technology. RPA is a technology that is following the rule-based principles. So this was, let's say, the beginning of automation for in our practice, starting with.
What you, Raresh? What's unintelligent for you in terms of automation?
I would say, as Ionela mentioned, unintelligent would be RPA, right? But looking from a technology perspective, of course, if you add a degree of intelligent, then it becomes intelligent, right? What's that degree of intelligent is all those technologies that would allow you to get some insights, some decisions that at the moment are done by the human. So coming back to unintelligent, from a technology perspective, would be a solution that just follows the rules and does some basic stuff.
That's very harsh on these robots, Raresh. Like very harsh. Ciprian, would you care to defend our robots? Well, the robot industry in itself.
Right. So I would say that's automation or unintelligent.
Remember, I said defend the robot industry.
The robots can become really intelligent, right? That's what they need. It's just an additional layer which we can put on top. And we have, for instance, with RPA, also other automation technologies, the capability just to make everything more cognitive for the robot, right? They are going to understand the information, which is, let's say, unstructured, then in a structurally manner. Right? And intelligent automation will allow then to automate much more and bigger processes. So I would say standard RPA would be just an unintelligent automation, but there are also other types of automations besides just the RPA.
A macro might be, right? A macro might be an unintelligent automation to save the robots.
Yeah, macro script or things like this. So it's
yeah, just go really back in history, you know.
History, but it's still widely used.
Cristina, there's another good
Yes.
question there, and it goes like this: what are some of the biggest challenges in implementing a bot? So maybe you can give us a sneak peek from your BPO perspective.
Sure. So the biggest challenge is actually to know what you want, to define what is the final objective, and to define it in a strategic manner, as Ionela was mentioning, because it's insufficient to have 100 robots or 200 robots if those are just scattered around and doing tasks. What is very important is to have the right technology. And when I mention the right technology is what I believe is now available on the market, because before we were talking about very siloed approaches and technologies. Now we are talking about platforms, either unique vendor platforms or ecosystems of partnering platforms that can actually help with an end-to-end real automation. I would say that most of us were at the beginning as well rather junior to it, even though we were consultants and advising our clients how to build the RPA. When we started our history on our own, we faced the pros and cons. We faced the technical delays, technical debt, because we started with an idea that turned out to be a totally different elephant in the room. And what is really, really important is to be able to, how is it called? Kill your lovelies. I mean, to really be able to kill robots or to decommission them, to identify at some point that you need to really work agile and not to get stuck to the idea of internal marketing or showing off, and really looking at the efficiency behind and what is really the KPIs that you want to reach out to.
So do you kill unintelligent robots?
Definitely, yes. Everybody now claims to be intelligent, you know, even the robots.
Understood. Ionela, your point of view on challenges of implementation of automations, especially within the RPA space?
I would probably say that getting the process right, you know, defining what steps you want to automate and what technology you want to use. Indeed, it sounds like a simple fact, but when you start talking to people, to the people who actually do the process, that's the funniest part, is you realize that it's not so clear what is you know, the best way to execute that process in such a way in which to bring value to the business, because they took on legacy procedures. When you many times as a consultant, you know, we ask why 100 times. Well, Lina teaches us to ask only 5 times, so we use the 5 why. Why are you doing this? Why? Well, many times business owners do not know. They say, well, that's the way I took over from somebody else, so I continue to do that. And then you wonder, well, do I automate it or not? You know, you need to question, and the automated process should be a better version of the one that was done manually. Like I mentioned earlier, it's important to not only automate in the right way, but automate the right things, because you can have the right technology, you can do the correct steps, but if it doesn't add value, there's no point to use that automation, and people will not buy into it. They will not use the bots. So it's a balance that you need to achieve between taking the business requirements from the business user, you know, challenging it a bit, and coming up with a process that will be a better version in the automated form.
Thank you, Ionela.
I think Ionela and Cristina mentioned really interesting stuff, and we're also stumbling on this, defining the strategy, also optimizing the process. But another point that we're seeing, and I'm sure Gabriel, Ciprian, you also noticed this with your clients as well, is about the change management part, right? How do you convince someone who's, let's say, not digital proficient, doesn't understand the technology, that in the end this would be one of a solution that they would use? So this is something that we put a lot of emphasis on, and we've seen a lot of cases where the message at the beginning got wrong to them in a wrong format, and in the end we had some issues, and we had to recover from that situation. So that's I think that's extremely important on how you communicate within the organization the message of automation, and how you convince even those who are actually running the process and the process that's being automated to support you through the implementation, and in the end use the robot. So I think this is very important to have a successful implementation.
Alex, since you're speaking about sorry, just one, and I promise I'll give you back. Since you're on the subject of change management, somebody's asking us, how do you gain, I'm guessing, the trust of business experts on robots, right? How do you get business experts, people with real seniority in some processes, to say, to get the conclusion that robots are useful? And Rares, and then Ionela, if you can add.
The way we're doing, so we're taking up agile approach, right? But of course, first of all, explaining the technology, then explaining the process, then implementing a first step in the process, doing a POC, agreeing with them that this should be, at least to get an idea of how the tool is working, and having the capability to try it by themselves, right? This is a POC. And then step by step implementing, automating the process, adjusting whatever it's required through that process, whether through process optimization or applying different technologies or solutions to the whole complex automated solution. So that would be an agile approach to show them that whatever they desire to some extent or full extent is possible.
Ionela, briefly.
I just wanted to add that on this topic of change management, that during this time, it's even more difficult to do. You know, that's why companies that didn't start with automation could have a hard time starting now, when people are not together in the same place, when you can not actually interact with people face to face. Having to do this virtually can be significantly more difficult than before. So this is a good point that I wanted to say, that Rares indeed touched upon the change management, which should be different in a virtual environment than in a live environment.
Thank you, Nela. I am going to remind everyone who is with us that they can ask questions through the Q&A button. We're not going to take any live questions, so we will not enable the microphone. I will do my best to capture all your questions and transfer them back to our lovely panelists.
Gabi,
yes?
If I can add something to the last question.
I was going to you right now.
Okay. I wanted to add another angle that we have seen from the market and from our clients. In fact, this pandemic has also raised the appetite of the people towards automation, and has transformed them, most of the users have transformed them into more digital savvy users. I mean, I know people that didn't really know how to use the Facebook or anything else, and now they are proficient on Facebook, just to give a very human example. So now the expectation of the workers towards the organizations is increasing. And I would say that the change management would be not necessarily now towards getting the people on board, but more towards speeding up the process and scaling automation in the right way.
Great. And just another quick question for Cristina, because I think it's good. Since we're talking about change management and business people adapting to the new de facto state, there's no more just finance. There's IT is in everything, digital is in everything. So we all have to kind of get on board and learn to use multiple skills in order to succeed. Somebody's asking us, what do you think are the emerging jobs, roles in business services industry generated by the automation context? So I'm gonna let Cristina answer, and then Ciprian, if you can add from maybe a technology point of view, what are some of these jobs which are being created in the future?
Well, I would say that the most important jobs that are being created is to be a human face to the robots. We are seeing with our clients as well a lot of expectation of automation, but they also expect a human touch. So the mix between chatbots and robots is really a winning proposition, also because of that, because people are feeling that they are communicating with a person that has feelings, that understands, and not with a robot. And this for us is one of the potential new roles to actually bridge the gap between automation and the needs of the business. Also a good role would be storyteller. Storyteller in terms of processes. What I mean by storyteller, I mean really understanding deeply what the strategy is and how this can be translated into the story behind the robots or the automation. And the third one would be to sustain, I mean, to have those still maybe a bit modified, but still existing roles of managing the robots, of making sure that the robots are ongoing, because in the end they are, and they will be technology. And if the robots are failing, it will be more or less how Google at the beginning started with the Google Translate. And it has been years since it had become better and better in the results, by the time that people had really understood that it got better. Because the first image and the first feeling is the one that keeps in the people's heads for years.
Thank you, Cristina. Ciprian, your point of view on how digital transformation creates new job opportunities?
Right. So I would start with the UiPath's initiative, and this one is one robot for every employee or for every human, right? So what we have here, robots working with everyone, and the purpose is to get the best out of us, to give us more time, right? To focus on the more important aspects. Having more time, then we can innovate, we can evolve, and from our job, let's say, we then can think about new business models, new business opportunities, invent new processes. So that would be on a first layer if we have more time, right, to focus on what's important. Then, of course, there are cases, and this is a hot topic, but happened also in the past, that it's going to take some jobs. And yeah, this is somehow true, but it will create a bigger job capacity, right, with more high added values. And one basic example would be that we can have a citizen-led development. We also provide the tools with low code, or we go in the direction of low code, no code, so that everyone can create his own automation. So basically, then he can be some small developer to automate his own tasks. Everyone can also become then a BA, an analyst who will also analyze how to optimize the processes, how to get
the famous storyteller.
Exactly. So getting the best out of people. I see. Giving them more time, as I said, will then make them also evolve.
Right. Switching the direction a little bit, uh, as we all know, and I've mentioned before, global organizations are experiencing huge workforce disruptions, and discussions are around that some companies who are able to have a larger digital workforce footprint were able to kind of go through this transition phase in a much better way. So, Ionela, if you'd like to discuss with me on why do we think that companies who adopted digital transformation, who have automations implemented, are experiencing less disruption in general?
Well, I I think already having that capacity helped them uh, during this time, because starting automation takes some few months, I would say half a year, just like Rares was mentioning, to set up the change management process, to get people on board, to show them how it works. So the ones that started in the past had this advantage that people did not need to be convinced that automation works, that automation can help them. So it was just a matter of actually doing the hard work of developing, during this time. It's also the appetite for automation. When new processes come up, organizations don't think about, oh, okay, what jobs do we need to post now? They think, well, can we directly automate them? Can we have these processes directly done by bots without even recruiting new people? And this is something that comes from experience. Only after you spend some time automating and understanding these technologies, you have that creativity to think, oh, wait a second, I would just use the technology in this context without, having to go through the manual process for months.
I know, Ionela, that you're working with a few banks locally in Romania during these COVID times to quickly deploy automations to support some new non-existing demands, right? Like how to defer loans or how to do MMA Invest. Maybe you would like to kind of cater to those examples a bit?
Actually, it's like you mentioned, those are very quick new processes that came up during this time, and banks saw a huge volume of transactions that needed to be handled in a short period of time, and the banks which we are working with already have a long enough history of implementing automation. They already had the licenses, they had the infrastructure, they had everything they needed. So it was very quick for them to automate these new processes.
basically they were able to add a new workflow, a new process to their clients,
Exactly.
the BTC frames
Yes,
quickly
they
and be
had
able
the
to solve
internal
that event.
teams. They had the internal teams because that's very important. It's important to have the required skills to implement this, and you can actually have processes automated in a matter of weeks.
Raresh, would you like to add anything? Any opinions on how this digital workforce is helping companies uh, gain speed or maintain their existing internal processes to provide support to customers and vendors?
Definitely, here are a lot of points to mention, but I would like to add just to point down a few. So I think this digital transformation is a key action that that companies should take at the right now. Yeah, a lot of companies saw that well, digital and paperless process, right? Saw that with this lockdown, a lot of in some departments the workload increased tremendously, and in other departments we saw that the workload decreased, but decreased because the documents were not getting there, right? So for example, the contracts were not being signed. How can you get to a contract to sign it, paper sign it, if you're not able to reach your business partner? This was a time when a couple of companies we discussed with, we realized the importance of having a platform, going paperless, and having a platform that would automate this process, like contract management process, and also the accounts payable, accounts receivable process. Hence our proposal with this unified platform. Of course, additional to this platform are also the robots, which can, as Ionela, Cristina, and you and Ciprian mentioned, they have a lot of use cases and functionalities that can be automated, that can automate processes.
Thank you, Raresh. Still with you, and just moving forward this conversation in digital transformation. What are the demands for automation in this last quarter? I know mentality has switched a lot, and the needs of the customers have transformed. There's a new reality out there. So you as a consultant, and of course the rest of you, what are some of the new demands, habits which you're seeing in your customers?
So the first, while discussing with some IT representatives of our clients, they said, well, these couple of weeks have been horrible for us, right? We had a project to start working from home. And we had a couple of people working we enabled a couple of people working from home, but then COVID ended up, and we had to switch everybody from work from office to work from home. So that was an increase of 1,000%. So that was very terrible, very bad for them. And I have heard this from several companies. But then after everything worked smooth, they said, well, this wouldn't have happened if we would have managed before to automate some of the process, right? You can have attended robots, but unattended robots that work from a data center. That would mean not necessarily such a high load on VPNs. So that would be one of the process that or several processes appeared, especially from the back office area. The reporting part, also the in utilities, on how you can manage the requests that come via digital channels, right? Identifying, extracting data from forms or from documents. So they're looking very much into this kind of process where you combine automation with or dumb automation or unintelligent robots with intelligent robots and technologies in such a way. So you
robots have feelings, Raresh, trust me.
Well, I have a couple of them just behind my back. I hope they won't kick me. Definitely. So they're looking on how they can automate end-to-end process, especially in the back office, where they're managing documents structured and semi-structured in such a way so they can automate the whole process.
I'm just gonna go towards the right. So Ciprian, where do you see growing demand? You're sitting in the middle of all pipeline in the East European sector. What do you see?
Right. So I think we can see demand, a growing demand everywhere, right? Everyone has realized during this lockdown that there is a big need for automation. So to have an automation first mindset, and we see and we discussed earlier about this. So I think we don't have to debate too much and admit that digital transformation is important, but there are a lot of new situations we need to adapt to. So we need to be sure that also the people are prepared, also the companies to act, and of course then to react. And I think IT, there was a big struggle on the IT because they had to make sure that everyone which was working from home is respecting security policies and so on. So IT automation reports which can be generated then. And I think, and I've heard some friends also talking about that the employees are being more checked from home, right? To make sure that they work. I don't find this a really good situation under such a stress condition. So adding some micromanagement layer extra will not help them to be more productive, right? So it's going to be a higher stress. Higher volumes come also in the inbound with our customers, and the ways we interact with them have changed a lot. So we can see use for bots and also for chat bots, which now take place of the humans, right? We digitize everything. We used to go to the bank, now we have a digital bank. We used to pay taxes, and now we see that we also can do those things at home. So basically, I would say that everything which had to do with interaction of the people is now moving slow, not slowly, but actually pretty fast to such digital solutions.
Thank you. Just overall general question, anyone can answer. Do we see differences? So most of you I know have worked even in global partnership and global clients. Is there differences to working in Romania or other East European countries when we're talking, of course, about automation and transformation to automation? Anyone can pick it up. I'm not gonna name a person.
So I would
Thank you,
start
Ciprian,
then.
for helping me.
Okay, it's I would say it's also about the mentality, about the culture, and what the companies are willing to pay for, right? It's the same price which also other companies from West are paying, but they already know the technologies, they already know what they want, so it's much easier to sell because they come to you. So in Eastern Europe, I think it's a little bit more different. We need to convince them and also make them understand that not choosing the cheapest solution would be also the wise one, right? We need to help them to think also in the future. So not on the short term, but when you go with the technology, with a specific vendor, you need to think about a roadmap. So don't have one or two processes in mind, but have the whole picture, how you want to digitally transform that business. So start with why, always, right? Why do you want to do that? And then you are going to know and make sure that you are going to be successful, I would say. But this first step, yeah, it's more about convincing them, showing them the numbers, the metrics, and they move fast, slow in the beginning, but as soon as they just have some processes automated, they have the metrics, the results, they analyze this, then they can sell it to the business, let's say, right? And also having the right RPA sponsor is mandatory. So it's we also need to keep this always in mind, right? We're doing this with the right people. Are we doing this for the right department, and so on? So that would be it.
Just gonna use this question as, oh, sorry, please.
I just wanted to add that actually a challenge for companies that have subsidiaries in Eastern Europe it's a bit more difficult to make a business case for automation. So the idea is that they don't have budgets for large digital transformation. So they are locally, they can manage small budgets and thus small projects, which it's counterintuitive to a digital transformation, because if you are only able to use 2 licenses to build 2 bots, obviously we cannot even talk about implementing something at a larger scale. So the way you have to go about it is to try and convince the headquarter, the mother company, to look at a wider business case, at an enterprise level business case, and then cascade it down to locations. So it takes more selling effort, but in the end, I think you have the chance to implement it in a better way, because it is transformation. If you look at process by process, you might not get a business case. But if you look at enterprise level, then automation becomes more attractive.
Lena, you touched a very nice subject, business impact, business case. There were quite a few questions on the chat asking how do you calculate business impact? What is your expected return on investment and so on? So I saw, Rares, you wanted to add something after this.
It was just one point to what Ionela mentioned. So I think she has a very valid point regarding the business case. In Eastern Europe, it's a bit more difficult to create such a business case that you have thousands of robots. At least this is my view at the moment. Maybe she agrees or not. But what I'm seeing in Romania compared to other countries that are in our region, like Central Eastern Europe, we see a lot of traction, and I think this is because of us all doing this kind of discussions, having a lot of interactions with our clients, and of course UiPath being present all over. Yeah, so everybody's asking about UiPath, and then they're thinking about business case, and then they take a decision, right?
So what is this business case? How do you measure it? How do you quantify it?
Well, it's usually about what are the benefits of the automation versus the cost, right? Everybody knows that, and at least in the beginning, right? The business case, the automation business case was a cost reduction business case, right? So the implementation cost of the automation should have been smaller than the cost of actually running the process with the human. Now we're seeing a shift in this kind of approach, right? Because automation is much more than comparing what humans brings with copy paste on the table and what robots bring with copy paste on the table. So I think it's a shift in the market regarding on how you see automation. Of course, everybody expects to see returns of investment in one way or another in less than 3 years. At least this is how I'm perceiving it.
Yes, I think it's good to be realistic about it. And indeed, if you simply search RPA on Google, you'll see that everyone promises ROIs of under 1 year. But it depends a lot on how you calculate it, indeed. And there are many benefits that are not quantitative. And obviously, it's very subjective to put a number to it. What's the benefit, for example, for BCP? How do you measure what happened during these 3 months? Maybe it was not in a business case, but if you think about it now, it would have been very valuable to have automation before the crisis came, right? But it's not you won't find it with a number attached to it in the business case. So it's, I think, companies need to be to look beyond the numbers, the costs and the benefits that are basically reductions in FTEs or whatever they want to measure it in, and to start looking at the bigger picture and to try to think, okay, well, I have risky processes, I have confidential processes, I have processes that I'm planning to increase my business without adding employees. So how do you measure that in a business case? It's quite difficult. But I think executives need to have a broader view, actually.
Cristina, I saw you have some feelings about that.
Yes,
so.
of course. So I just wanted to, coming not from the consultant perspective, but from the user perspective, I wanted to mention that I would say that running after an ROI is very overrated. And generally, these concepts are changing and are evolving more towards different types of KPIs. As my colleagues also mentioned, it's really important to look over what is the more intangible outcome rather than the tangible outcome. And if I can touch with your question before about Europe, what we see a lot is that our clients are reaching out to even rent this kind of automations. And for us, that was one of the peak services. And the fact that sometimes it was much quicker for clients to outsource, and Europe and CE becomes even stronger in the outsourcing industry, because this they are already, shared service centers and BPOs are already highly automated or have an appetite for automation. And we see a lot of our clients reaching out to considering outsourcing as being an agile way of working. And of course, it's in the outsourcing industry where business cases or tools such as UiPath, such as any other tools on the market are really thriving, because that's where you get the power to actually buy the whole platforms and to make the benefits by scaling.
Thank you, Cristina. Just a small reminder for everyone, we're in the last 8 minutes. So just a quick
I feel like
question,
in a marathon, Gabi.
I'm sorry, but I am a German folk, right? We have to be on time and people have other things to do. There are a lot of people who have stayed with us till the end, so we want to maximize their effort. So quick question with Cristina, KPMG. How can firms execute on their automation ambitions while maintaining high standard of quality, like long-term reliability?
Okay. So what I would basically suggest most of our clients is to take a pause on the things that they have been doing so far and really think strategically to the future. And because in order to really achieve the desired outcomes, you need to change a bit the way you used to look at the processes and to really think clearly in which strategic solutions you can invest, or you should invest, they should invest. And these strategic solutions would actually need to be integrated, just a few solutions, and not all over the place, all of the solutions that exist on the market, just to test them. To be really integrated, to be complementary, I mean to help each other, because most solutions are good for something and sometimes are lagging at some other aspects, and to be scalable. And these three aspects should be on the agenda of all the strategic decisions into what kind of projects should we invest next. Because after this, what we have seen during this period is that most projects, well, critical projects have survived, but most of them have been put on hold or are being delayed. And this delay also comes due to a lack of trust in how the things have been doing so far, in lack of, realizing that ad hoc and siloed approaches are no longer going to be the key to success in the future, and really focusing on an integrated strategy and the vision would serve companies to better compete on the markets tomorrow. And of course, one of the most important aspects is to look towards customer experience and towards what the market is requesting, and not to be kept on, not to keep on looking into your own processes and how to make them more efficient, but to integrate them to the demand from the market as well.
I heard a pickup line, so it kind of triggered me. Do we all feel that the new scenario has changed the appetite in terms of automation demand? So as you mentioned, some projects have been put on hold or delayed, while others have come forward as a priority. Maybe Rares, Ionela, you can share some insight on kind of this shift in consumer habits?
Should I start first, Ionela?
Go ahead, Rares. Yes.
Okay. Definitely. So we've seen some increase in interest in some areas, and some decrease in other areas. I think, as I was mentioning earlier, the appetite for automating process where paper is intensive increased tremendously in this couple of months, and I think it's something that that would be the first step to a digital company, right? Leaving aside all this paper that have to be signed or filled in by either the customer or internal by the employees for internal purposes, and shifting to a platform where everything is integrated, automated, and at the end of the day have less manual work. And this is something that we've seen a lot of requests in the market, and a lot of appetite from our clients and companies that we're discussing with.
I want to add something here before Ionela, sorry. Speaking about these platforms and about these end-to-end solutions, we also have many of those. But what we see a lot is that there needs to be a shift in the mindset to actually have an e-document. And these e-documents are not really replacing the paper. We've been talking about replacing paper for years now, and it's still not there. And what we see a lot, and I will be really honest with you, mentioning that some of our clients in the BPO are actually these large platforms that claim touchless. And the way this touchless is being performed towards the client is that most of them also have a back office in the back. One sometimes in Romania with KPMG, sometimes in Philippines, sometimes in other areas. That is actually helping with the digitization of the paper. I'm not sure if you have seen that, but for us it was a growing demand to work with them, because paper still needs to be somehow in a digital form. And that's why our BPO also has a rising demand now, because we are actually offering them this digitization of services, this tiny little piece in the puzzle.
Thank you, Cristina. Ionela?
I just wanted to add that actually, the changes come from both sides, from vendors, from customers, because we are all adapting. So customers learn about, their new priorities, their new needs in terms of, like we are mentioning, IT. Definitely that has been a priority during this time, because they needed to support the infrastructure for work from home. But at the same time, ourselves, we need to coordinate and understand how we respond. So it's a calibration that goes on, what the market demands and what we can offer, because we are changing the way we offer services as well in order to be able to address this new, let's say, this new context. So it's a process for all of us.
Thank you. So we're coming to an end. We have exactly, let's say, 1 minute more or less. Any final thoughts? Maybe if each one of you can take 30 to 45 seconds to express any final thoughts. I'm going to start with Rares. I feel like I've mistreated him the entire session. So Rares, your final thoughts?
I think this was a very good discussion. It was very interesting to discuss to talk with you all and present our thoughts about automation, and not only. So we moved from automation to paperless to a lot of areas, and I think and I hope the participants got a lot of ideas on how to improve the way they're working, and also get the most of the automation. So. For me, it was an insightful discussion, and I hope I'll be able to have many more like this with you and others.
Ciprian?
Right. So I think this discussion, from my point of view, opened also my mind to think a little bit more in the future. And I think we should ask ourselves, how can we perform better, do everything more efficient? And in the end, what do we want to achieve, right? Where do we want to get? It's important to know in the end how we can measure the success, right? We have a lot of tools on the market. Everyone talks about digital transformation, but we need to think about a good strategy and know where we want to be in the next 2 years, 5 years, and so on. And based on that, we can start the digital transformation.
Yanela? I got you by surprise.
Yes, I was deep in thought. So I really appreciated the discussions actually, and this opportunity to share some ideas with the fellow speakers here, and actually, you know, like I mentioned, to get out of the house. So I'm very happy I got to the office. But on a more serious note, you know, we are in different boats. We cannot say we're all in the same boat, but we're in the same storm. So we're all trying to understand which are the tools that best serve us during this time. And I really encourage everyone not to get stuck in this, let's say, crisis mode, because we need to think further than that. And automation is not short term. I don't think it's an option anymore. I truly believe that it's not easy to do it. It's not easy to integrate it in your landscape. It's not easy to get started. I know that. I've been there. We had all the, like I mentioned, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but it's necessary. So take it step by step, and I think we'll all get to a better place.
And last but not least, Cristina?
For me, it was a really interesting experience to come to speak to you from the perspective of the user and not the consultant. It's always interesting to wear these two hats, because in each discussion, I need to know how to place myself and to know what messaging to transmit. And I had a really nice time debating and discussing with you really bluntly and without market speeches or sales quotes, about really practical ways forward, and the fact that we should not really be afraid of the robots. They are, and they have existed since a while. I think the approach to them, or the mindset of the people, or the messaging initially was maybe not the best, that transmitted a sense of fear that is now transforming into a different and more mature messaging, and as well into a more savvy approach to this kind of automation from all the market. So I really appreciate and thank you, ABSL, for organizing this, and UiPath for moderating. And I'll be happy to come to other events.
That was everything for the day. I'd like to thank everyone who participated with us, and extend them I'm very grateful for their time. Please feel free to contact us and send us your questions, your ideas. Thank you, ABSL, for hosting this and organizing. You all have a nice, productive week.